of the deck. And even though it is, quite widely, I say, panned as a very simple, straightforward deck, when you start doing, juggler Libram things, as you can do so in a lot of matchups, it does get complicated. And I think there's a lot of players who miss a lot of potential, whether that's actually just value or just raw damage that's missed out in each games. And Alutemu has impressed me time and time again on this Paladin, so I look forward to seeing him potentially pilot it again in this series.
Yeah, and just one final thing, talking about being impressed by Alutemu, shout out to him as well, because he had the option, which he turned down, of taking a break in between the semi-finals and the finals. And that was a marathon of a semi-final that he played out with an extremely elongated 3-2 victory over Jay. But he apparently just gave the thumbs up and said, no, I'm good to go. I will play Hearthstone all day if I need to. And that is absolutely the case coming out here. He is going straight into this series. Finals time, Raven. China versus APAC. Alutemu versus XC. Libram Paladin versus Demon Hunter.
Yeah, and this is the matchup, isn't it? Or at least this is the main matchup Paladin should do well in. Both players having a reasonably good opening here. Alutemu, of course, playing those air raids. And I've not had a chance to really, I don't really think, speak to you, but what do you think of air raid, in not only how it's performed in these games, but in general as a play here or a plan for this deck?
It seemed good, honestly. It's not a card that I've tried much. I have some experience with this version of the deck, but I would still call it limited, and this is not a card that I've tried out. But honestly, it's impressed me from Alutemu in the positions that he's managed to play it. So it's definitely a card that I'm interested in looking at in the future. But, it does also have that additional mirror image functionality, right, which I think is what he's most interested in with the way his lineup is targeted at Demon Hunter and Warrior specifically, which I do think just makes it make a lot of sense overall here.
And what surprised me, not relevant right now, of course, but what surprised me previously was how well it looks in the mirror. Actually, just 2 extra bodies on the board. You're always looking to try and stick minions for the buff. So, look pretty good, but so far, XC is, of course, going to be on this Demon Hunter, and the access to Shard Shatter, just nice and early, of course, as long as he doesn't draw those fragments. Has to be at least some level of comfort for XC in these opening few turns.
Yeah, and I do want to recap Alutemu's opening curve here, because I think he's played it very well. He skipped the first day of school on turn 1 because he had the Aldor Attendant, which makes perfect sense. He can hold on to that for a potential high roll with Hayab Allura down the line. But then on turn 2, having not picked up a better play, he decided he didn't want to play Air Raid because there was a 1-3 on the other side, so just 1-3 plus hero power would just value trade both of his minions, and that would feel bad. So he chose to rip the first day of curve on turn 2, looking for something different to do. Unfortunately for him, however, he found 2 more 1-health minions off the first day of school, which meant that he had to end up going with the Air Raid anyway.
Yeah, there are, of course, some great other minions you can get. Mainly looking at those 1-3s that are in the pool are absolutely fantastic normally, especially when Librams start coming into play. But
the correct answer, Raven, is 2 Pharaoh Cats, as we saw in the previous series come out from Alutemu.
That is true, yeah. Don't get me wrong. They were pretty good in that game. But Loot Hoarder coming down now, again, is one of the things I spoke, I think, all the way at the start of this tournament about, I think with Lorinda, when I was saying originally this style of Paladin wasn't getting the job done, but when players started dropping in more and more card draw, it started to look significantly more powerful.
Yeah, tutor effects are very powerful, and this is a very weird little package that's thrown in the Paladin deck, but with Broomstick, Salad's Pride, Loot Hoarder, Novice Engineer just kind of all fishing each other out of the deck. That leaves your draws to be extremely powerful things in the remainder once you've cycled out all of those just card draw cantrip cards.
Yeah, and already now, with that Libram 0 mana, we're going to see Alutemu make the most of this every single turn. XC is playing a single consume magic, so there is a certain level of consideration this early in the game when he's only played 1, if he wants to throw 1 on preemptively and risk it being silenced and gone away. I think I much prefer him to hold it here and always use it to try and trade into minions, but it looks like he's opting for the extra little bit of damage.
I actually like holding onto it here as well, and the reason being the Broom that he has in hand. So as soon as he has a Broom turn with all of these 1-drops that he has in hand, he has the ability to play 3, 4, 5 of the Librams in a single turn. And then once that's done, you don't actually mind that much about getting it silenced away at that point, because at that point your Liadrin is already fully juiced with the fact that you've just played so many of them in a single turn. So with that turn on the horizon, I think I personally would have favoured holding on to it as well.
That's it, isn't it? It's the fact that he has only, or will have only played 2 this game, which means Liadrin is significantly weaker. But here, XC, of course, doesn't have the consume magic. And this is a tough one, isn't it, Sol? Because XC has a lot of good options in his hand, but he has to work out the best way to divvy them up and actually get ahead in this game.
And right now, it's just ever so slowly picking this board state apart. This is the other benefit that perhaps holding on to the Libram for a bit of flexibility would have played better, because you can use it to play around more precise breakpoints once your opponent has given you some information on what they're trying to set up, right? Because the setup is fairly face-up, I would argue, based on what XC has done this turn, but because Alutemu has his Librams in play already, there's not really much he can do to play around that.
Right. Although you say face up, I would say it's still kind of one of 2. Shard Chatter most likely, but of course Hero Power Blade Dance would achieve the same thing.
Yes.
So going wide at least helps with some of that for Alutemu. Obviously, with this hand, he can't do anything about a Shard Chatter, but he does make it a little bit more resistant to Blade Dance.
Yeah, it's very fair.
He gets the bad news. There's the Shard Chatter, but again, he gets the Libram back now, so he can recast it, gets the missiles, and gets the draw as well from the Loot Hoarder. So, still very high on resources for Alutemu, but now he's starting to lose the board, so we might see this Penflinger or Broom at some point in the near future to try and wrestle it back, because as Paladin, you don't want to be behind on board.
It's true. He does have Barov to fall back on if the emergency situation does come up, so I do think priority number 1 is continuing to draw cards here. The Novice Engineer was a very good pickup just to be able to keep doing that, because he can't just worry too much about playing these small minions. He does have to find some power cards at some point to be able to start pushing very hard.
Very interesting there as well. I did wonder whether there was ever any merit to the Penflinger missiles Penflinger again, and then have, potentially first day at school or Libram, whatever, to bounce the Penflinger back to safety. Could have killed off the 3-2, but instead, Alutemu just deciding again to go wide. The 3-2 not a massive threat. These 1-1s technically will clear it up, but the Altria Sol is going to clean up a huge chunk of this board.
Ooh, Mana Burn is pretty premium here, honestly. The fact that he's making such a big board push, just denying that mana for Penflingers to be played with on the following turn, I think is very, very important.
Yep. Priority number 1 for Alutemu, though, is kill this Altruis. It needs to die.
What's the best way to go about this? There's the Broom method with the Librams and the small minions in the air raid, or there is the Penflinger method. Things have been made more complicated by that -2 mana that he has this turn, but I think they are both still available.
I quite like Libram Penflinger, because then he always has Broom and Barov to get the job done.
That's a good
if the minions are actually bigger. Like this does the job of these low health minions very nicely.
That's true. Careful. He's fine though. I trust Alutemu with my life to get these Penflinger turns right. It's fine.
I was just about to say the same. I think the way Alutemu's been playing, he's probably the player I would least worry about making slight mistakes with the turns like this, because he's just been nailing them all day, every day for this Masters Tour, so confidence is high.
There's just a danger of, there's nightmares and flashbacks of people burning the quest in Quest Rogue because they were bouncing Novice Engineers, for example, where he was casting first day of school and bouncing a Penflinger back into his hand, but he had it calculated perfectly.
And this, look how weird this is. Massive minions, big attack damage swings, 2 little 1-1s in the way. It's so awkward.
This is exactly what I meant when I was talking about the mirror image effect of this card, right? We talk often about how mirror image being generated in Mage is extremely powerful against both Demon Hunter and Bomb Warrior. And Alutemu has the choice to put a fairly equivalent card just in his deck and has chosen to do so.
Yeah, these two guards on the night shift right now, a bit bored, but they have no idea the value of the work they are doing. Imagine Lapidary Blade Dance comes out here just to push the damage to face. And I sound like I'm joking. Honestly, though, wouldn't hate it. XC, I think, needs to get these cards played.
Time grows short.
I'm worried that this is too slow.
Yeah, it's a ton of unspent mana this turn. He can coin out the Marrow Slicer here and still have a relatively effective turn. So maybe he is still in decent shape.
Hey, though, Alutemu... he's playing a very strange game right now because he's not had one of those draws where he's getting towards those bigger minions, right? He's not got the Libram of Hopes very obviously, Lady Liadrin, Evolt Pupil, the other True Seeker. There's a lot of big things, and even just, to be fair, the Hand of Adals as well to actually buff the minions up more. There's a lot of big minions he's been missing, so now he is playing that weird, just utilizing all these small resources, but in such a way that is still causing trouble for XC, and there's, yet again, just another air raid there is going to be a huge problem for XC next turn.
It is, and it might just be time for XC to shut his eyes, press Blade Dance, and just hope this damage can get through, because fast approaching the point of the game where I think we would have seen Libram of Hope come down if it was going to, based on just how wimpy the rest of the boards have been that Alutemu has generated. I think if he had some beef in his hand, we would have seen it by now. And like you were saying, like XC just can't hang around forever.
Yeah, like how does he deal with... He has a 4-attack weapon, right? Is he really going to put that into a 1-1? I think now he does have to commit the Blade Dance and just go. He gains him. And this is why I was thinking of it the other way round last turn, because he would have had a 5-5, and yes, it would have potentially been cleaned up by the Penflingers, but he already would have pushed damage. Then he has the Cane, plus the Soul Shard Lapidary number 2 to go through and push more damage.
Oh, it's so close to just being extremely powerful, but he is just going to have to use it for his Blade Dance activator instead. Alutemu heads up again, got that 4th minion down in play so he could potentially protect himself from the Blade Dance push. So the Penflinger wasn't perfect in terms of being able to clear out the taunts and preserve the Blade Dance, but at least it did allow the Blade Dance to connect all this damage to face.
Yeah, I would imagine this is a Libram of just this turn.
It seems that way, yeah. If he's playing Sharpshooter first, the only reason behind that I can really see is that he wants to cycle Hand of a Doll before he does anything else. Because otherwise, the turn starts with Barov or Libram of Justice, right?
I mean, right, but Libram only affects enemy minions, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
It doesn't overly matter if he plays
That's true.
the Sharpshooter first.
That is true.
It's definitely one of those. I think were you talking with Larindra about where it's like the weird mental ordering that actually makes no difference, but some players do one way, some players do others.
Yeah. It was like Blade Storm and
right?
Attack when we were talking about it. Yeah, and just neither of us processed that you could do it the other way around, even though it made no difference. Yeah.
Ooh. There's the first, or like I guess the second big minion here for Alutemu, the Devout Pupil. After seeing Blade Dance, after seeing Cane, Alutemu's on low health, but that is a huge pickup.
Wait, what? Where's this Liver of Wisdom going?
Reporting for duty.
And okay, that makes sense.
Again, I paused for a second because the animation looked weird. But it's Alutemu. He's not going to land that wrong.
Yeah, as soon as I saw he was hero powering that turn, I figured out that the animations just hadn't caught up with the board state, and he was not actually pointing that at a Penflinger. But it did look very bizarre for a minute there.
Look how horrible this is.
Yep.
There's just nothing he can do yet again. It's just more taunt minions. And honestly, you partly have to wind all this back to the question I asked you right at the start of the game. What do you think about Air Raid?
Yep.
Well, in this game, it's been insane because it's put Alutemu in the position that Devout Pupil is such a problem now. No Shard Chat has been used. Blade Dance has been used. Kane's gone. all because of those pesky air raids getting in the way.
Demons.
Yeah, I think this is the first potential little micro mistake from Alutemu on this turn, though, because I think I still would have liked to have seen that Libram come down on the Devout Pupil for this exact scenario, right? Yeah, you know there's a Penflinger, you know there's a hero power, therefore you know your taunt is dead if you don't just stack up the extra health on the minion. So I think I actually would have liked to see one more come down there.
Do you think there was a slight fear, because he has 2 Penflingers in hand, of the Consume Magic draw doing too much, negating the taunt and the Libram?
That's very fair, sure. Definitely see that as a consideration.
Yeah, definitely not a given, but a bit of a fear factor.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at all this. These Penflingers have done so much damage.
Yeah, wait. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Wait,
I think he is just a little short.
Can he Barov?
Oh, the same play that we saw before? Yeah. That's actually hadn't looked at that at all.
He can, right? He just attacks in. Barov, pen 1, pen the other, replay.
Yeah, so then that's 3, 6, 7. You miss the 1 damage, and then you get the Libram back in hand.
And you get 2 more. You get 2 Librams.
You do, yes.
Move quickly.
You can push an extra 2 damage with the sharpshooter afterwards.
Yeah, it's still short though, because the Barov plus the 2 Penflingers is all of your mana in terms of extra Penflinger damage, so you don't actually get to cycle it at that point. But it's certainly a thing that we have to look out for now.
Oh yeah. With old Looters, he's going to keep us on our toes with this deck.
Unfortunately for him though, this is colossal damage now coming through from XC, and this was a lot of fancy stuff coming out from Alutemu this game, but he completely missed all of the meat in his sandwich. No Libram of Hope, no Liadrin. He hit 1 Devout Pupil towards the end, but it wasn't enough to put a block on what XC was doing. And that is the big favourable. It's the big reason why Paladin has even been brought to this tournament. It's the big reason why Air Raid is teched in there as well, to be able to be improving that matchup. So that loss for Alutemu, I think, is an extremely big deal.
It really is, and honestly, it's sometimes Libram Paladin, believe it or not, looks really powerful and looks incredible, and you wonder how it even loses. Well, in a lot of matchups, you do need the Liadrin, which again, it's a one-off, it's a legendary. You do need to hit Libram of Hopes, because that singular card does so many great jobs. Big, massive minion to kill someone, or defend yourself because it's got taunt, and heal yourself as well. If you miss on both of those, and that Devout Pupil came down as late as it did, those are the games you lose, because Alutemu got so much out of the resources he had, but as you said, it just no meat in there for that one. So that was a tough one for Alutemu, but again, good job for XC as well, just keeping a cool head, considering he had what appeared to be a pretty unfun game, having to make some pretty tough decisions into those awkward boards that Alutemu put down.
Yeah, and that means XC is now going to move on to this Bomb Warrior, which is yet another deck that he has the potential to face some unfavorables for. Like, just looking at lineup versus lineup, at 0-0 in this series, you'd have to say Alutemu was pretty favored overall, but now having one unfavorable, having gone the way of XC already with the Demon Hunter getting out of the series, that might have just completely flipped on its head, but there is still the same deck available that I believe Alutemu reverse sweeps to get here through the semi-final, the Warrior coming out from XC, and it's going to go up against this deck, which I cannot believe wins games of Hearthstone, Raven.
Well, that's it. I just want to, before we start, having the Hunter fight we normally always have, I will say, I agree. I think the hurdle now is Alutemu needs to beat up this Bomb Warrior. If the Bomb Warrior gets a win and XC's left on Mage, that's when Alutemu needs to be quite afraid. But, again, I like in this Highlander list, not my favorite list in the world, but it works like a Face Hunter, and Face Hunter has a good matchup versus Bomb Warrior. So, again, it's I would say, just on the surface, a decent matchup here for Alutemu to, again, try and just bank these wins against Warrior.
Sure.
I mean,
just hit the premium curve of the cards that you play in Face Hunter anyway. Makes sense.
yeah, that's how the deck works. Saul, if you've not played it. I will say though, again, Face Hunter, Highlander Hunter, and all that, but its curve is so low that yes, hitting certain minions versus the the substitutes, you can call them, you have to run because it's a one-off deck, of course, is better, but it does play an extremely low 1 to 3 curve effectively, so it's likely you are going to get the aggro start.
Yes, but that's the difference, right? If his opening hand was like Guardian Org Merchant Beaming Sidekick, I wouldn't be saying, wow, he hit 2 1-drops in his opening hand. He's hit the single copies of the premium cards that are good enough to be played as 2-ofs in Face Hunter. Like, that is That's just fair. A fortunate outcome when you're playing a Highlander deck.
Yeah, though, already, Alutemu is facing down just an on-curve Armorsmith from XC. And this is one of the differences, though. Not to massively different levels, of course, and you'll understand what I mean, but although Face Hunter can go long, against high armor generation, it does feel limited quite a lot if the armor generation gets there, whereas Highlander having access to the Zephyrus especially means that there are other things you can do to make the game go longer whilst keep piling the pressure on.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think with the standard version of Face Hunter, there is this theory that started when Face Hunter appeared in the meta that was, you will run out of damage before the warrior runs out of armor, and that's not the case. The warrior runs out of armor very, very quickly in comparison to the amount of damage that you output. Whether or not that is the same with the Highlander version remains to be seen, because there's a higher ceiling in terms of burst damage, right? When you add Zephyrus and the Dinotamer Brand in there as well. But in terms of consistently outputting that damage, you're losing one Voracious Reader, for example, to make sure that your hand economy is high and you're actually able to keep pushing damage, and various other sacrifices that you're also making.
This is nice, though. Alutemu, I say nice. It's not what he will want, but being able to just one-shot this Armorsmith now with the Shadow Weaver is nice. It's only gained a bit of armor. It's not ran away with the game. There's no big risky skipper turn come out, of course. Too early for that, but it's a small victory and one he pretty much needed. But now, how does he do the rest of the turn? Does he have to actually commit Dwarven Sharpshooter hero power here to protect his 4-2?
Yeah, protecting the 4-2 is a big deal, but in order to do that, you give up playing a 5-4 in a couple of turns. A 5-4 that is active in a couple of turns. So does that actually net you damage in the long run? I think that's a very debatable point.
And then there's another question of what does actually playing like the Neophyte and Dwarven Sharpshooter do instead? And just go face.
I think at that point, you're almost like sacrificing the idea that Felmore's even going to have an impact in this game, though, if you don't get it down now. So I think I just like Felmore. Alutemu obviously very undecided himself here, though. It is going to be the Dwarven Hero Power line, okay.
It's really tough, isn't it? Because playing the Felmore gets about the same damage as the Shadow Weaver Living would get, but later. So it's really hard to judge whether it's worth trying to protect the Shadow Weaver or not.
Yeah, I mean, playing outright face aggro is a game of fine margins, and I think you talk about some of the fine margins there. Like, he gets to push 1 more damage immediately because his 1-1 goes face. He also then has an extra 1-1 in play that can continue to do damage, and the minion we're talking about deals 5 and not 4. That, I mean, comparing those two as the same damage, like, that is quite a big difference, actually, if you start looking at it.
Unfortunately, though, for Alutemu, XC just had the Kobold Lackey to snipe it off anyway. Didn't even require the weapon swing into it, which, again, when we're talking about damage done, is a huge difference. Having to face tank that 4 and not is massive here for XC. And honestly, his hand is shaping up. The Krastenov, and in that turn, whilst this minion is dormant for Alutemu, Krastenov and then the trade again to draw more cards is looking mighty powerful here for XC.
Insane. Yeah, this cutting class is now getting so cheap that it's actually a castable card against Face Hunter, which is very, very surprising as well when you can actually just take the moment to draw cards. But, hello, now some business has been found here from Alutemu.
This is very strange now, isn't it? This is an odd situation. of like how you deal with tracking and polka. And that's the reason why.
Yes.
That's the big brand, of course.
Yeah, one way or the other, the result is the same. You have a brand in your hand, it's fine.
And Polkel, and he'll still be able to just take a look and know the order for now, obviously.
Yes.
That will be limited if a wrench caliber, there we go, is drawn.
Indeed.
Also, at the end of the day, Polkel is just a 4-5, and it does challenge the board very effectively right now, actually.
Yeah, it does. This Krastenov sticking for an additional turn, though, is complete misery territory, though. I don't think I've seen Warrior lose too many games where Krastenov has stuck around an extra turn, which I think does have an element of confirmation bias to it, because I think for Krastenov to even consider sticking around for 2 turns in the first place probably means you're pretty far ahead when you play the Krastenov, right? But yeah, I don't really think I've seen that happen too much.
Yeah, normally it feels like Krastenov may as well be a battle cry. The amount of times you see it just get the effect once and die.
And yeah, you can understand from XC's perspective exactly what he's doing here, because he knows from his position, if he doesn't reshuffle the deck here with the Wrench Caliber, his opponent is drawing Dino Tamer Brand next turn, which he would really like to deny from happening. He doesn't know, of course, that Alutemu has already picked it up.
Elmore gonna swing. Okay, value trade.
Oh, bomb off the top as well.
Well, now he'll know, right? Oh, no, he won't, of course, because of shuffle. It's the other way around, yeah. I've made that mistake before, where I played Polkelt with bombs as my top of the curve, and then just died.
Wow, a 3rd turn it's living, Raven. Absolutely absurd.
How, as a percentage, how confident would you be that a Krastenov living 3 times is a 100% win rate for a Warrior?
100%, Raven.
Well, we're about to put it to the test.
Oh, this Dino Tamer Brand is a heck of a card, though. Like, my neck is on the line now.
Well, it was actually a big deal that that bomb went off, right? Because this will just be bomb number 2 total in the game, and
Yes.
one's been drawn. So you can actually play the Dino Tamer Brand.
And
Look
that
at
you
this,
saw...
though.
You saw XC's kind of visceral reaction to the situation as well when the bomb was drawn, and that's what that meant. We were focused on the idea of reshuffling the deck to deny the Dino Tamer Brand, but of course there is still the aspect of getting duplicates in the deck to switch those cards off altogether. And the fact... Okay, at this point, that's actually a good draw for XC, because he now has, you know, realistic counter-lethal situations coming back the other way.
It's very simple. If you don't have multiple in the deck, they may as well all go off, right? You may as well deal the damage, because it means nothing in between. Having one does nothing. I think going to come down though and clean this up and still live and threaten lethal. And Alutemu, I think you saw it in his face, and he's like, well, these are the games I lose. And yes, that Krastenov stuck for 3 turns, therefore I have to lose this game of Hearthstone.
Oh, acidic Swampus, but there's nothing.
No.
There's just nothing to answer the Deathwing Raven.
It just doesn't matter. The freezing trap was thrown away with the tracking, of course, for that brand. So not even a chance of getting hold of that on that draw or anything. So it looks like XC is going to go up 2-0. And like we said, Sottle, the Warriors took a win. Now, he has all the time in the world to put together a win with Mage, which seems very, very likely. And honestly, if he wins this next game, it'll be fantastic for XC. The only disappointment I'll have is we didn't get to see these two play more. You know, there's such a long build up to a final, and it might be a very quick 3-0 win.
I'll just be disappointed that, you know, as standard with Masters Tours, they like to mix up the pairings. They don't usually put us with our normal GM partners. So we've been kept apart for most of this event, Raven. And I'll personally just be sad that I don't get to spend more time with you if this is a quick 3-0.
Okay. Pausing, waiting for the joke, waiting for the joke. Oh no, okay, there was nothing. Okay, good. Yeah, we haven't cast together much this event, and it's been a nice break, I'm not going to lie. But anyway, going up
sometimes the joke is just to be genuinely nice to you because it makes you feel really awkward and you have no idea how to deal with it because you're just not used to the situation.
It has thrown me off on occasion, hasn't it? I just have no words. But we do have this Tempo Mage list, and this is just, as I like to call it, the list for me. None of this Spellkin rubbish. Just having the Conjurer's Calling in there, Arcane Intellect, Devolving Missiles, which we've seen every single time there's not a Devolving Missiles in the core list. I feel I cast a game of Mage saying, oh, they're really looking for Devolving Missiles, but they don't run it. Like every single game.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I think the debate has largely been solved as well since the nerf to evocation. Obviously, one of the big upsides to the Spellkin package was extra shots at hitting that evocation with just the amount of one-mana spells that you are generating. So I think that has largely settled the debate. And the stats from this tournament do bear that out as well. The people that have stuck with the Spellkin variation do seem to have performed quite badly overall in comparison to the people who brought it. But honestly, I think the big winners overall were the people who actually didn't bring Mage at all. I think we saw a lot of those lineups ending up being very, very successful. So again, I think XC has done extremely well to get to this point while still having Mage in the lineup, because overall the matchup spread for this deck in the tournament has not been very good.
And honestly, I'd like to just preemptively... Go on, Sol.
Zephyrus. It was just a react to Zephyrus noise.
Okay, cool.
Continue.
I want to bat this over to the mage specialists here, because that was a one thief keep just along with that Violet Spellwing, which was very surprising for me. It's not a card I see kept too often without multiple one-cost cards. Is there any big read in there? What do you think was on XC's mind with that keep?
Yeah, I don't think One Thief is keepable, with the exception of a couple of matchups. And I do think 2-of's Face Hunter is one of them. I couldn't tell you what the correct mulligan is against Highlander Face Hunter because I don't have that level of experience. But if you just want to take your standard Face Hunter knowledge, I think One Thief is a keepable card on coin in that matchup. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you see a lot. Just to throw you off. But again, Barrier, Nova, all pretty powerful. But I imagine it would be the Barrier instead of the Nova.
Well, or is it Devolving Missiles, Raven? It's a good card.
He could devolve the 2/3 and stop the secret coming down. There is high value in that.
Yeah.
Not going to coin it out, though.
This deck does, play a good chunk of buffs. We're being very fortunate here that we're actually seeing most of them being drawn here in the opening hand. Adorable Infestation, Beaming Sidekick as well. And then, of course, the threat of Scavenger's Ingenuity and all that kind of business coming down as well. So it's a pretty big deal.
I wonder where this buff's going to go, right? Because he can just buff the 2/1 and get a value trade. Yeah, I like this. Did we get secret knowledge then? I didn't notice. It's only one of two. It's only one of two.
Yeah. Freezing and Pack Tactics.
Oh, it's Face Hunter now, Sottle. Leper Gnomes on the board. Leper Gnomes off the board. They dealt two.
He's going to coin the Cyclone here as opposed to coining the Ping. Does get to rebuy that Devolving Missiles as well. And this Mana Giant is getting cheap, which is surprisingly relevant in the matchup, I would say. Like, you do need to find those counter-race opportunities, right? You can't just sit there and try and keep the Hunter off the board, because then you're just going to lose to hero power. You have to find the tempo swing turn where you land the Giant on the other side.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be some way to win the game in this matchup, right? You can't just hold off. But Jandis, Mana Giant, even these spell damage minions are significant at just dropping them on the board, because again, Highlander Hunter, this variant, is not really equipped to deal with opponents' things. It's more, it wants to do its thing and its opponent has to react to it. So if you can start landing some minions, it's going to be huge. Freezing Trap is going to go off, and that does mean XC has the knowledge now that there is only a Pack Tactics left in the deck if another secret comes down.
Indeed. But this damage is ramping up thick and fast now. That is 5 that's got to stick. There's a Zephyrus to back this up as well. Imprisoned Felmore might just be good enough to push Alutemu off that line, but I would certainly still consider it here.
Oh, it's tough, isn't it? I actually think it might be Felmar, you know, Felmar Hero Power now. Because I'm trying to work off the logic here where you Felmar Hero Power push, next turn card that's drawn Hero Power push, and then go Bran face into Zephyrus lethal. I think is a pretty good plan. If there was 6 mana and you could say, for example, Zephyrus into maybe Soul of the Forest, then that would change a few things, even though we can see the seemingly unlimited devolving missiles for XC this game. But still, I think if that was a plan, the Zephyrus would be more reasonable. But for now, I think I like the Felmar Hero Power.
Okay. I'm on board.
Only because you could almost always bank that 8 damage from Bran, and then looking at this health total, this might just be a Zephyrus Fireball game.
Yeah, no, that's true. I was looking at, while you were talking there, I was looking at like what happens when you push this turn, you press Hero Power, and then you go again next turn, whether you just have Savage Raw Lethal set up at that point.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
But that would be 5 plus 8, which is 13 total, I believe, so I think that is one off. But that is another way that you could certainly look at setting it up over 2.
One off seems good to me when you're on 30 and your Hero Power does too.
Yeah, I mean, you won't get it, though, is the problem,
Right.
right? It doesn't offer you the Savage Raw in that position if it's not
Why
lethal.
not? I just want to put him to 1.
Yeah. But this has to be the Zephyrus turn, right? One way or the other now?
Yeah, sure.
It's just too embarrassing a turn if you don't play the Zephyrus here, in my opinion.
I mean, you could just not, right? What I mean is then you have Dino Tamer Bran for lethal, and if that's not lethal, you have Zephyrus. I guess it's the same thing, just faster.
Yeah.
I just don't... Honestly, I'm just not sure what Zephyrus is going to do. That's what scares me right now.
Oh, wow!
Savage Raw!
Raven!
Always believe Zephyrus has the heart of a hunter.
That's sick. I've never really seen that come up before. I guess because the buffs were actually so relevant in terms of trades as well. Like, Zephyrus was actually just pretty interested in it for the first time ever. That is the perfect outcome for Alutemu. Absolutely what he would have wanted to pick up there.
Yeah.
Now he just has 100% guaranteed lethal off the hero power. Nothing that is in Mage's deck can play around this apart from Puzzle Box, or the ability to generate Puzzle Box, and obviously XC is miles off from being able to do that.
Or some form of Conjurer's Calling, potentially, but again, long shot.
Yep, good
That
point.
is going to be the game. Alutemu gets the win, and I'm just loving it. It's off the back of a Zephyrus Savage Raw, not for lethal. Glorious. Put him to 1. Does mean he isn't going to get 3-0'd, and Alutemu is on the fight back, but he has to do that another 2 times. And the problem is, to do so, he has to take wins with his Priest and his Libram Paladin, which I feel just as hard, if not harder, than that matchup.
It actually really surprised me. I've genuinely never seen that happen, and I've seen so many screenshots to the contrary as well, where it's even like 6 health taunts in play, and there's like 5 Unleash the Hound Dogs, and it still doesn't offer you Savage Roar,
Right.
even though that's obviously like perfect efficiency to then trade 2 of those dogs each into the taunts. So it seems so rare to get Savage Roar in those positions when it doesn't end up being lethal, but that was the exact card that Alutemu was looking for, because even though it was one-off lethal, as you said right at the start of the turn, one-off is good enough when you've got the Hunter hero power.
Exactly. Looks like Alutemu is going to be going back to his Paladin here now for game number 4. And again, this is pretty much outside of those air raids, just the Paladin list. I think you could queue this on ladder if you wanted to play Paladin. Not really any crazy tech cards, because the tech cards you could say of air raid, I think, are just meta cards. They're not even highly tech. They're not like weapon destruction or anything like that. They are just good cards in a lot of the matchups you'll see quite commonly, even on ladder. But let's just dive straight into it. It's the Mage again from XC versus Alutemu's Paladin.
Both these opening curves looking somewhere in the region of perfect. XC with double spell damage minion on the play. Alutemu, I think, would rather be going first himself, but outside of that, I think he's in the business of an Aldor Attendant Hand of Vidal start to be able to try and dominate the board early.
Yeah, very interesting once again. The throw of the Solarian for, he got a cram session, which is obviously fantastic, but just not a mulligan, I would have assumed. would be too common there. I think a 1 into 2 spell damage looks insane for Mage.
Yeah, I agree. I actually even would have considered the full keep there because the Ray of Frost on 2 actually has the potential to shut down this situation. I think the one thing you really don't want to do on as Mage in this matchup is fall behind early, and there's very few curves that cause you to fall behind early, so you can argue that it's not really worth planning for them, which I guess is the stance that XC took. But I guess maybe with a little bit of caster vision of what I was staring at on the other side, I would have been a big scaredy cat and held on to that Ray of Frost.
I'll tell you right now, though, this opening, there's nothing quite like it for Paladin. Right, 1-3, suddenly it's just on turn 2, you've just got a 3-5, and everything's looking fantastic. You're drawing cards, you're punching things in the face. It's exactly what Paladin wants to do right now.
It is absolutely... Oh, double Salad's Pride now. This deck is going to get thinned out so quickly and so effectively. But it's hard to imagine Alutemu drawing as dead as he did in the previous game.
Would it be crazy to suggest coin Broom here? Is that just too much? It probably is, isn't it?
So you'd go, what, Salad's Pride into the Solarian and Broom into the 1-1 and push the damage? Or do you want to take a value trade?
Either or, but I think just pushing would be nice. And although it's not exactly a face deck, I'm just thinking if you can get more with it. Maybe because the Salad's Pride, the Broom is better next turn. But honestly, it's mainly to defend this 3-4 against this Solarian, which is very scary right now.
Yeah, I actually don't mind it. The reason being because he has double Salad's Pride in hand already. He's probably just going to draw second Broom pretty soon anyway. So it's not like he's going to be out a Broom in his hand, right?
And the 3-4's so good, right? Just let it live, because it beats like pretty much every Mage minion, right? And he's getting awfully close to just having his Devout Pupil as well. He just has so much stuff that I think he can, like, throw this Broom away, so to speak.
Yep. Oh, look, more card draw.
Yeah, it's so great, honestly. I love this card draw package in Paladin, because it looks so strange, but it works so well.
XE stuck with still 2 8-mana Mana Giants in his hand. Absolutely not where he wants to be at. He is going to get these Arcane Missiles built up, but even with that Apprentice in hand, he's a long way away from actually making anything happen with his big threats. And the pressure from Alutemu is looking like it's going to ramp up much quicker.
And of course, Alutemu's hand has been good all game so far. But having that Lady Liadrin in hand is just that little bit of comfort you want, right? You just want to say, okay, when I get to turn 7 or onwards, depending, then boom, I've got the huge resource generation to either push damage or just stack up all those Penflingers as well. So having just that or a Libram of Hope makes all the difference in planning for those late game turns. Meanwhile, though, XC is starting to piece together quite the amount of resources himself.
He could actually discount his Mana Giants by 7 each this turn, even at that point where he'd already committed the Wandmaker. Because both of those Ray of Frost, no, one of the Ray of Frost is generated, the other one's natural, right? So you could discount them both by 6. If he played Primordial Studies and hit exactly Lab Partner, then he could have got them all the way down to 2 each just that turn with Sorcerer's Apprentice.
And then you play them both. They get Libram of Justice, and you cry a little bit.
I mean, details, Raven, details.
Look, we only want to talk about the cool things and not the outcomes of our decisions here.
Yeah. But the point I'm generally alluding to is I think at some point, like, the discount on the Mana Giant just has to be the payoff here for the Sorcerer's Apprentice. He can't really get too greedy in terms of trying to find anything better.
Well, there's a Lab Partner as well, which looks mighty fine to me.
Yeah. Pretty sure these Giants are playable this turn. It's just a matter of how much XC wants to commit if he's going to go for it.
I think I all in. That's what I want to say right now. Get that Evocation cast. Do stuff. Because the big problem here for XC is he's just seen Alutemu not only have a very powerful start, but draw 1 million cards and will continue to do so with this board dying, as we can see. So I think XC just needs to go for maximum power level right now.
Oh, it says explode!
Is the Giant 0? The Giant is 0, right?
Oh,
Yes, he can get it down
Conjurers.
with the Conjurer's Calling as well, and I think this is enough to the point where he can now hold on to the second Giant as well. Like, this is already a game ender of a board, so he does not need to full commit here. But honestly, there's almost little downside to doing it, because again, people think of Libram. People think of Libram as a quality consecration, but it just isn't. The card that's a quality consecration is Barov, when it can come out with Broom as well, and that is a disgusting pickup for Alutemu.
The happy clap from Alutemu. He could have done enough with Libram of Justice, and by enough I mean the bare minimum to not die, but this is perfect. This clears this wide board, and then the Mana Giant number 2 we can see with Conjurer's Calling gets taken apart by Libram of Justice the turn after.
Yeah, and that's the point I was making before we kind of got distracted by the Barov draw as well, is that by playing a third huge minion there, you can kind of make it so your opponent can't do enough with just the Libram, right? And you put them on just Barov. As it stands with the Barov top deck, if XC had played the Mana Giant, he would basically be 0% this game, whereas this way he at least has a hope, but he's going to need some kind of very sticky outcome off of his second Conjurer's Calling. All right. One Thief is a good follow-up to round out the turn.
Ooh, tough one, isn't it? I think the Flame Strike?
I think the Fireball.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like this.
Oh, okay. Oh! Okay. Look at XC's response! That was amazing! XC was just like, yep, chill. Okay, play my turn. Whoa! Sorry. Oh, we need a slow-mo replay of that later on.
What? Like,
Sol's still recovering.
I'm broken. I actually need to be rebooted. I don't understand what's going on. That, like, not only the Octosari, which is obviously the headline grabber here as well, but I was talking about how he needed a sticky board presence. He got Plagued Proto Drake as his other minion here.
It's huge, isn't it? It really is. It can be more or less dealt with, but the card draw is so big.
Oh, no! Not like this!
Insane. Someone needs to go and have a word with Mage. It's doing things that aren't allowed.
8 cards drawn. I mean, it kind of got swept up in the insanity, but I actually really liked the Fireball pick because I could understand saying, like, okay, Flame Strike. I'm going to take the highest value card because my card needs value. I think the Fireball accepts the stance that I was kind of on board with. It's like, no amount of value from one card is going to be good enough there. So take the card that ends the game, and that way you don't need value anymore.
So the way I saw it was, with the Brooms gone,
Yeah.
Conjures the Giant, they build a board to beat it, you Flame Strike, push, game. Like that was my thought pattern.
Well,
it might not have paid off, of course, but that was the way I was still looking at it.
Yeah, but so look at the health total, right? Like, the Conjurer's Calling outcome on its own was not going to represent lethal if it stuck to the board. But in your world, they make the same board they make that you want to Flame Strike, and you just hit them in the face and Fireball them instead, and you're just skipping a step and ending the game, right?
But what if there's a taunt?
Anyway,
what about those?
that issue is very, very much in the past, Raven, because this is an entirely different game of Hearthstone now.
It's not even past and present and future. We're in a different timeline right now.
Yes, we are.
Because this is so crazy, the outcome of this game right now, and I'm not sure, even with Alutemu's mastery of the pen flingers, I don't think it's going to be enough. And with Counterspell, I think that is going to be it. A wave goodbye from Alutemu, an amazing tournament for him, but an even better one for XC as he takes the victory and becomes your Masters Tour Madrid champion.
Call Alutemu, he is crying. The most brutal Octasari that we have seen since Season 2 of Grandmasters in the original year, the one that resigned Orange to the fate that he is still trying to recover from to fight his way back into the Grandmasters program. Octasari is an absolute heartbreaker, and it has a tendency to come up in the most important of times. But from XC's perspective, I want to take nothing away from his performance. I'm ecstatic to have a China winner of a Masters Tour because I've been an advocate for the Chinese players and the quality and the level that they have improved to since all the way back in like 2015, 2016, when honestly they just weren't on the same level as the other players they were competing against when they came to championship events. I think they've come a long way since then. I think they're absolutely now arguably the second strongest region in the world outside of Europe, and XC has the most wins in Swiss over the last 3 Masters Tours combined now, tied with Jay, I believe, on that point. And now he rounds all of that off by taking home the crown, taking home the title of Masters Tour Madrid champion, and a fully deserved winner in my eyes.
Yeah, an absolutely fantastic top 8, honestly, and a great Masters Tour overall. But I do agree. I remember even years and years ago when we didn't really see any Chinese players outside of Worlds, right? They were not really traveling to events or anything like that, so we didn't get to see them play. And now one of the few benefits of unfortunate circumstance of these Masters Tours being online is we get to see more of the Chinese players get involved and play in some more like world-based tournaments. So it's absolutely huge and impressive from XC. Of course, that last game helped him out just a little bit there, but his play overall was fantastic and subtle. We have the results you mentioned a little bit earlier for the European Hearthstone Grandmasters GM promotion.
Yeah, and that means Letter, who was locked already, Wama, who was locked already, but crucially, Frenetic, who will have been frenetically biting his nails down to the stumps watching those last few games with Gabby and Jay involved. His position in Grandmasters is now safe as well. But as I mentioned, do not fret if you are Gabby, if you are J4U, or if you're a fan of either of those players, which I'm sure many of you now are. They are in a very, very strong position, looking not for the promotion into Season 1 of next year, which is now locked, but into Season 2, because almost all of that money on both of them, over $20,000 of it, has come in the period that is still eligible for promotion to Season 2 next year, which means they are in fantastic spots overall. But congratulations to our 3 new GMs in the European region, as well as the players who were already locked up at the start of the day for Asia Pacific and Americas as well.
Yeah, we do have more or less everything that's solved here. But any final words before we are done for the day, Sottle? Did you have a good event? Was it fun?
Genuinely loved it, Raven. I think it was excellent. I think the top 8 that we had in the end absolutely paid that off. Gabby is a superstar in the making. Do not worry, kid. I know you'll be disappointed knowing that you are missing out on Grandmasters by the finest of margins, but that's Europe for you. Sometimes you just got to readjust and just get back on the horse, and he will absolutely get there someday because he is just that good, and I hope we are going to keep a spot warm in Grandmasters for him. Hope to see him soon. Of course, big final congratulations to XC for taking home the whole thing, and once again, I think a very, very deserved winner.
It's been a fantastic event with a ton of high-level Hearthstone, but that means that's our last Masters Tour of the year done. Grandmasters is done, and that only leaves one more thing. The World Championships will be the next time we see you guys. It's going to be the 12th and 13th of December, so make sure to tune in because we're going to crown our next World Championship. It's going to be insane. But for now, thanks a lot for watching. We hope you had a fantastic time, and we'll see you